Stop! Don't do that! Max shouted through the open window of his car. A girl was standing on the bridge, clutching the metal railing with her frozen hands. Max braked sharply, parked at the roadside, quickly got out of the car, and ran toward the girl. Stay back! I've already made up my mind anyway, the girl replied without looking at Max. Wait. Please wait. That's okay. I'm staying back. Max pretended to stop. Look, I'm standing still. The girl quickly looked back in Max's direction and continued to look down. Don't do anything stupid. You're so young. Max continued to talk to the girl and slowly made his way towards her. Stay where you are, the girl shouted. By the way, my name is Max. He realized he needed to try to distract her and get as close as he could to keep her from jumping. Listen, do you like ice cream? It doesn't really matter anymore, she replied quietly. I love ice cream. I'd have some right now. Max continued to approach the girl slowly. Is the wind strong? He asked. It doesn't matter anymore. She repeated the phrase. How old are you? Max was already very close to the girl and tried to speak quietly so she wouldn't realize he was approaching. There were only a couple of steps away from the girl. Max quickly overcame this distance, grabbed the girl, and threw her back onto the bridge over the railing with all his might. They fell onto the sidewalk, and Max continued to hold the girl tightly. It's okay. Calm down, the guy said and started stroking the girl's head. She wasn't wearing a hat or gloves, only a jacket that didn't save her from the freezing wind. The girl started crying. She was shaking, trying to say something. It's okay. Everything's okay. Max tried to comfort her. One of the drivers ran up to the couple sitting on the bridge. It's okay, Max replied to the passerby, raising his right hand. No help needed. Everything is fine now. The driver went to his car, and 10 minutes later, Max and the girl were sitting on the bridge with no witnesses. Okay, come on, get up. You're freezing. What's your name? Max asked, shaking off his and her clothes. Hannah, she said softly, barely audible. They headed toward Max's car. He opened the passenger door and helped the girl to get inside, fastened her seatbelt, and quickly got into the driver's seat. Max turned the cabin heat up to maximum. Is it warm enough for you? Yes. Good. Where should I take you? Max asked. I have nowhere to go, Hannah replied calmly. In this case, let's go to my place, Max smiled. It was about 10 minutes' drive from the bridge to Max's house, so they quickly reached their destination. Max parked the car and walked to the passenger door. He carefully unfastened his seatbelt and helped Hannah out of the car. You're finally home, Max's wife greeted her husband on the doorstep. Who's this? Rachel, I'll explain everything in a moment, but first, please fill the tub with hot water. Oh my gosh, what's wrong with her? Rachel asked, looking at the girl. She wanted to jump off the bridge, but I stopped her. Max rushed to the bathroom and began to fill the water. Rachel, please help her bathe. She's freezing to death. Shh, Michael is already asleep. He didn't wait for you and fell asleep, Rachel said quietly. So, what's your name? Rachel asked. Hannah, the girl replied quietly. And how old are you, Hannah? 18. So, what happened to you that you decided to end your life? Rachel continued her quiet dialogue. Rachel, leave her alone. Let her come to her senses, Max said to his wife. Okay, get up. Let's go warm you up. Rachel led Hannah into the bathroom and came out 3 minutes later. Fortunately, you didn't have time to fix the knob on the door. She won't be able to lock the door from the inside. Rachel looked at Max with a smile. Right. Ask her if she can have some dairy. Max turned to his wife. Rachel returned from the bathroom and informed that Hannah could have some milk. That's great. I'll warm some milk with honey for her. She should drink some after taking a bath so she doesn't get a cold. Max opened the refrigerator and started looking for milk. Why don't you tell me all the details? There are no details. Max carefully took his sleeping son into his and Rachel's bedroom and walked Hannah into Michael's room. Daddy, she's awake! Michael shouted right in Hannah's ear. Why are you shouting so loudly? Max replied in a very loud whisper. Hannah opened her eyes and saw a boy of about 4 years old sitting in front of her, informing the whole family very loudly that she was awake. Who are you? And why are you sleeping in my bed? Michael questioned the uninvited guest. My name is Hannah, the girl replied quietly. I'm sorry, kiddo. I just didn't have any other place to sleep. Are you always going to sleep here now? Michael asked, looking at his toys at the same time. No, Hannah said on the bed. I'll leave tonight. Will you play with me? Michael put a big plastic truck on the bed. Look what I have. Wow, what a great truck. I've never seen such a big truck before. Hannah pretended to be curious. Good morning, Hannah. How are you doing? Max and Rachel peeked into Michael's room. I'm fine, thank you. I'm sorry to have caused you so much trouble. What do you mean? Max wondered. Tears streamed down Hannah's face. Max, could you please leave the room? Rachel walked into the room and sat down next to Hannah. It's okay, dear. It's time to get up. Wash up, and then we'll have breakfast. Hannah washed her face, walked to the kitchen, and sat at the table. Over breakfast, Max and Rachel tried to talk about anything but yesterday's incident and the circumstances that had forced Hannah to do such a stupid thing. Hannah didn't eat much. She didn't even seem to hear the lovely conversation intended to distract her from her depressing thoughts. Any plans for today? Rachel asked her husband. There's a lot of bookings at the cab service, so I'll work today. Max finished his tea and put the mug in the sink. Hannah, why don't you join me? Okay, just text me before you drive home so I have time to make dinner for you, Rachel said as she cleared the table. They got into the car. Max put on some music and they drove off. Max wondered what had forced Hannah to take such a desperate step, but he realized if she wanted to, she would tell them herself, so he didn't ask any questions. It's already time for you to come to your senses. Christmas is coming, Max said. As they drove in the car, there were too many thoughts in Hannah's head, and one of them didn't give her any peace. Why had he saved her? Max parked the car, got out, and told Hannah to wait for him. 5 minutes later, he was walking to the car holding some envelope. So, I picked up the envelope from the customer, from the management team representative. So, my game is to guess who I'm taking this envelope to, like someone's wife or someone's mistress. Also, we need to stop by the store. Soon he was holding a red Santa Claus hat and a headband made in the shape of a reindeer's antlers. Okay, let's get dressed up. Max handed Hannah the headband and put on the red hat on his head. Hannah obediently pulled the antlers on her head and intuitively started looking for a mirror. Max turned the rearview mirror toward her and looked in it too. We look so nice, Max smiled as he looked at Hannah. Hannah smiled back faintly. They pulled up to the designated spot. Max asked Hannah to go with him. So, let's make bets. Max turned to Hannah before getting out of the car. I think it's someone's mistress. And I think it's a wife, Hannah said calmly. They were already standing near the house and waiting for the recipient of the envelope to come down. Good afternoon, Max said to the woman who opened the door. Are you Brianna? Yes, Stephen told me you were coming. There are plane tickets in the envelope. We're leaving on a trip today," the elderly woman replied. "Merry Christmas!" Max congratulated her and headed to the car together with Hannah. "That's his mom," Hannah said, smiling. Max accepted a new order, and they drove off for another round of impressions. "Good afternoon!" A pleasant lady opened the door. Her left leg was in a cast. "I have packed presents for my grandchildren." The woman pointed to the boxes. Apparently, the woman was expecting important guests, as her hair was nicely styled, her makeup was done, and only her home clothes messed up the overall look. "Don't consider it rudeness, but my daughter has prepared a bag of clothes for charity. I think it would fit your daughter perfectly." The woman nodded toward Hannah. "Just help me bring it." She turned to Max. Her house looked like a palace. There were expensive paintings and lamps on the walls, magnificent furniture in the hallway, and a nice fireplace in the living room. Max had brought a big bag of clothes. Clothes and tags were sticking out of the bag, and it was clear that there were brand new clothes in the bag. They got into the car and drove off to deliver the gifts. "Hello, we delivered gifts from your caring mom," Max said. They were met by a husband and wife whose faces showed total indifference. A little later, two girls ran out into the yard. "It's for you." Max pulled out the boxes and handed them to the girls. The twins began to aggressively tear the gift wrap. "I told you to put this under the Christmas tree!" the mother yelled at the children. "Mom, we already have the same dolls!" The girls angrily threw the boxes at their mother's feet and ran crying into the room. "Oh my goodness! I told her what doll she should buy!" the mother said grudgingly. The rest of the gifts didn't please this family either. "Wow, even something like that happens?" Max said frustratedly to Hannah. She must have spent a lot of time picking out those presents, wanting to make them happy, and they just threw those boxes away like some kind of trash. Hannah was upset too. "Okay, let's go pick up the rest of the gifts now," Max said. "Please be very careful. Don't dent the box." The woman handed over the huge box containing the cake. "Don't worry, we'll deliver everything safely," Max shouted happily. "Look what a responsible assistant I have." Max handed the cake to Hannah, who was sitting in the car. "It's not interesting. We already know there's a cake in the box. But what we don't know is who's going to eat it. It's too huge. I've only seen such a big cake at my wedding." Max laughed and began to drive out of the yard carefully. They pulled up to the next location. Max took the cake from Hannah and asked her to dial the apartment number on the intercom. There were some children's voices coming out of the intercom. "I got it. It's a birthday cake," Max stated. They got to the right floor. The door was open, so they walked in. "Oh, hi! But we didn't order a cake." The lady was very surprised. Children of different ages ran out into the hallway, but they all looked like this woman. Max and Hannah didn't understand anything over this noise, but they realized someone had been born here today. "Who is this cake from? Do I have to pay you?" The woman was confused. "No, it's a gift," Max replied. This time, Hannah and Max got into the car smiling. "Now we can have some ice cream," Max said happily. "What's your favorite flavor?" "Any flavor," Hannah replied. "I've noticed you don't use a phone at all." "My mom is on a business trip. I turned it off. I don't want to hear anyone," Hannah replied tiredly. "When is she coming back?" Max asked. "She should be back in a week. Honestly, I don't want to be a burden to you. I think it would be better for me to leave tonight." "Where are you going to go?" Max clarified. "Maybe to Grandma's? I don't want to go home." Hannah looked somewhere ahead reflectively. "Okay, let's go to the store and get groceries for Christmas dinner. Hopefully that will distract you from your depressing thoughts," Max smiled. They stopped by the store, and Max handed Hannah a chocolate ice cream. "Hannah, why don't you celebrate Christmas with us and then go to Grandma's?" Max suggested. "We're not expecting any guests anyway, and you won't be so bored." "Is it a good idea?" Hannah asked. "Sure. I don't think Rachel and Michael would mind." Rachel gave Hannah one of her cocktail dresses, and Michael was running around the Christmas tree calling out for Santa Claus. Rachel and Max also changed into party outfits. Together, they all looked like one happy family. Over the past couple of days, Hannah began to talk more, to laugh, and to amuse Michael by playing with him. Neither Rachel nor Max had ever asked Hannah why she was standing on the bridge that night, ready to jump. They knew nothing about Hannah, but Hannah had learned a lot about them. Hannah knew that kindness was not about buying gifts, but about caring and respect, and family is more than the instructions and orders of elders, and children have their rights too. And the most important thing is to listen to each other and to hear each other. Hannah asked for a picture together. For that moment, she was part of their family, and it was enough for her. Over the past few days, she had been delivering gifts with Max and had managed to earn some money. The girl bought small gifts for everyone, Christmas decorations, and Michael made a Christmas card for her. "Can I call you sometimes?" Hannah asked timidly. "Rarely. I will not be annoying. I just really want you to always be with me." "Darling, you don't have to ask about it. Of course you can call us anytime you want." Rachel wrapped Hannah in a cozy blanket. "Just promise me you won't call from a bridge." "Rachel?" Max stopped his wife reproachfully. "What are you talking about?" "No, she's right." Hannah supported Rachel. "I'll call you when I'm eating ice cream, or when I'm trying to guess who I'm delivering the envelope to." Hannah winked at Max. A year later, Hannah sent Max's family a picture of her standing among trees, covered in snow, holding a handwritten poster saying, "Thank you for a new life."
All right, everyone's presentations are done. Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me and began to speak. There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. I'm leaving. After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly. The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick? Is something wrong? Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam. My mother passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I was raised by my father. Well, you could hardly call it being raised. After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing. Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school. Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my second year of high school and dropped out. I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything. The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke. Take care. That was our last conversation. Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment. Yet, my father never visited me even once. I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education. Listen up. Our work can change the future of our employees. Don't drag us down. On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly. There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle. At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state. But that was long ago. Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked, we could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. I understood why he had to be strict. I will do my best. Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. Did you not hear what I said? I'm sorry. I thought I was listening carefully. Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him. Someone was watching me with a smirk. In this department, there are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go. You are the latter. It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie, making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened. Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results. As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, I'm thirsty. Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey. I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day. Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today? Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today. I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly. They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children, with zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job, having joined the company wanting to do customer service. I don't care what they say, I plan to quit anytime, he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look. To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day. Originally, Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. So, you all get a chance. As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. Make sure not to embarrass Nick. If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them. It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America. Nick began the presentations. Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them. The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn. All right, everyone's presentations are done. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me. There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. He was likely talking about me. I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking. The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. Still here? Normally, you'd leave in that situation. Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life. I felt pathetic about my current self. I'm leaving. I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home. The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick! What's wrong? Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. Probably Sam. Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires. Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen. They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday. Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips. The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally. President of the company, Mr. Mason himself had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles. Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction. Do you know how much revenue we get from that company? We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs, gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan. If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized. Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason. What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do. I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you. Please. Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, yes. That's Nick for you. Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind. Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, I'm very sorry. Everyone watched to see what was happening. After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason. He was demanding, get his boss here immediately. It was no wonder Sam was exhausted, dealing with such a call right after returning from training. What is that idiot doing? All right, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next. Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation. If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you. I immediately followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was. As the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor. I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize. Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. What kind of training are you giving your subordinates? Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed. I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using their in. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1: if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread, hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? I'm very sorry. Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, "I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong." Mike! What have you done? Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. "I didn't do anything wrong." "You're still saying that? Look at him." Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. "I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract?" Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. "Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go." Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. "Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him." There's no way he was pushed aside. "Don't make things worse here." "He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he?" I don't remember that part." I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it. Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, I'm moving to the sales department soon. If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it. On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. It's still working hours. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived. I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. They look good. What are you talking about? These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one? As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed. He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important. You should worry about yourself, this could turn into a police matter. Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble. Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation. Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment. Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary. Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay? I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. Yes, I'm inviting my father. That's great. I might invite my parents too. I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hoped to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.